I go into my work Gmail, but don't change it to the city of Fairview Park. And then it's like, which one? So I think I
It
got
says it's live now.
6 weeks later, I figured that out.
All right.
Yeah. Live. Let's see if anybody else is here. Nope. I'm trying to print a letter for my daughter who has they have to write they wrote letters to the seniors on the softball team that are leaving, and she's asking
Nice.
me to print it so her coach can pick it up tonight. And I'm like, okay, hurry up and send it so I can stick it in the mailbox. And of course it's in Google, so I can't.
How you doing, William?
Apparently my daughter's shopping and mine too.
So there's 4 of us.
Okay, so Sarah's here, Greg's here, and Brian Simmerly's here.
All right.
All right, we'll give Maureen a couple minutes.
Hey guys.
Here
Hello,
she is.
everybody.
Hey guys.
There's Maureen.
Hey,
There she is.
Okay.
All right, well, let's start caucus. Is everyone good with the minutes of the meeting of May 4th?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Liz, have you received any any petitions or anything for this evening? Liz, can you hear me?
No, I did not. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I had myself muted.
Okay, we have 2 committee reports, local government and community services and finance. We're all set with those.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, Bridget, you have legislation for first reading and second reading.
Yep.
We're all set with that.
Yep.
Very good. Sarah, you have legislation for third and final passage. You have an ordinance and a resolution, and Bridget, you have 2 ordinances.
Yes. I have a question about ordinance 2010 for Sarah.
Sure, what's up?
They sent out that updated one with the name change, but the date change on page 1, it still says 2019.
Let me take a look at it real fast because I did not catch that. Let me see. You're saying on the contract it did?
Yeah,
Okay, one sec.
they did update the names on it.
Yeah, I looked for the names.
Yeah, the very first page, they didn't change. It says this agreement is entered onto blank day of blank 2019.
So is that something we would need to amend on the floor?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So let me write that down, maybe. So I'd like to amend.
The exhibit.
Today.
It. Okay, and that's line 1. Line 1, cool.
Nice and easy.
What's that?
Nice and easy, line 1.
Line 1 to read. 2020, not 2019. Okay, got it.
Okay, thanks, Bridget. Thanks, Sarah. Right, so that's all we have for legislation this evening. Roundtable. Brian, do you have anything?
I do not.
William?
Nothing.
Maureen?
You know, I was just curious. I'd gotten a call. Sandy Lane isn't in my ward, but the lady, I just chatted with her. She was having issues because she has wires in her yard that then, you know, go into one of those mounting brackets on the tree lawn. And just there was rusty wires and things. And she talked to the city about it, and the city said it was the electric company's wiring. And then she called the illuminating company, and they said, no, it wasn't their wiring, and check with the city.
Are you talking about a guy cable to the pole? That
And was
runs out
just
to the
saying,
yard?
it seems like these, they must be, well, that's what she's saying. They must be unused cable wires, and didn't know, how do you get rid of wires that don't seem to be serving any purpose?
I think you have to go to the appropriate utility, whoever's wires it was, or, you know, if it was the cable companies or the, you know.
Well, that's
phone-
what she was trying to find out, and city and the illuminating company both said, well, they aren't ours. So she was saying, I don't know which cable company they might, you know, how do you find this out? Because she said she doesn't even have cable. Does anybody have any
I think-
direction?
I mean, I think
her?
the service department should come out there and give her a hand, let her know.
They did go, and they just said that it wasn't the city's wires, and they thought it was the illuminating company, and they said it wasn't theirs. And then, so what it came down to is both said these must be some cable company wires, and she doesn't even have cable, so they're probably wires that were put up at some point in time, but she doesn't know whose they are.
It's such a rusty wire, Marie. It's probably a guy wire.
Okay.
The company guy with.
Hey,
So-
real quick, I'm completely unrelated to this. I think Cooney's trying to get in, but he says he's waiting to try to get in,
All
and
right.
he's putting him in. Sorry.
No, I just didn't know, what do we do about situations like this when it's, there's so many different cable companies.
It's
Who-
ridiculous. I know I've gone right to the pole and cut them off myself.
Oh,
And
okay.
I can
mean,
say I've cut wires down myself as well.
Okay, okay.
They're just abandoned there. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, that's the next thing I was curious, like, wires get to the point they're such an eyesore, and you wonder how many wires are inactive that are just dangling throughout our city.
Yeah.
So-
Just make sure you take a volt tester in there, make sure it's not live.
okay. All right, I'll give it.
Maybe the law director could shed some light on that. What do we do about utility and cable companies who abandon wires in our city, just leave them dangling from poles? Nobody wants to claim responsibility for them. Tim, could you shed a light on that?
Well, I mean, I think we'd have to determine who owns them
Right.
and then, contact them and, have them do whatever they're required to do under when they had the contract.
Well, that's kind of where this woman is at, because she knows that they aren't city and they aren't the illuminating company. They both kind of are concluding these are cable wires that aren't in use, and which, there's a whole myriad of cable companies. So she doesn't even have cable. And I was just saying, this is one woman, but throughout our city, as Mike and Greg both mentioned, there are wires that are just dead wires out there. I know we had old phone wires that came down when a tree fell, and they just said, do you want these anymore? And when we didn't, there's just dead wires out there. Just to clean up our city a little bit, I didn't know how we go about getting rid of, all these wires.
Someone
Yeah, I mean, I think we would have to determine who owns, you'd have to find out what kind of wires they are, who owns them, and then contact them. That would be the only way to do it. And I don't know how you would determine what wires they were, you know what I mean? You'd have to have somebody that knows.
Well, that's what
electricity, cable,
the city and the illuminating company both said, basically they aren't ours. The city was nice to her, but they said, these are cable wires, and so I'm trying to think, there's how many different cable companies, and then also potentially they could be dead phone wires. So she just keeps randomly calling people. Is that the solution?
I think the first.
Or call Greg Berger.
Yeah, I'll hop up there now, no problem.
Well, I think we should check with First Energy, because typically it's their pole, and they could.
They
shed
did
some
come
light.
out. They did come out, and they said it was the city's. And then the city
Okay.
came out and said it was there. She's kind of gone in circles with it. And the
Yeah,
city
there-
put something to cover part of the rusty portion, which was nice of the city to do that, since nobody was doing anything, but they see in our worst.
Oh, do you know the poll number, Maureen?
When I think that there's probably all these wires that are just dead out there. And so we have no recourse with all these cable companies to say, hey, or phone companies to take down wires when people don't have service. Is that correct?
Okay, well, it's not our poll, so typically, if it's our poll, we could take it down, but if it's not, then we have, Mary Kay, is that
Yeah,
correct?
I can try to track back whose cabling it is, if it's either phone or, I, can get some response from Cox Cable, especially if it's posing a safety issue. If,
Yeah,
I've
that's
seen,
what she has little kids and stuff. I'll talk to you tomorrow more about it. And I can get you her name and address so we can address it. But there's more than just her in the city as a whole. I was just curious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's wires on phone poles that are dead. I mean, there's a lot of them up there. I mean, it's more cost effective for these companies just to leave them up than to send somebody out to take them down.
Right.
Yeah.
But it does become an eyesore over time.
Yeah, I agree.
right, if you would send me an email, that would be very nice, because I can forward it to my contact and then follow up with them.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Maureen. You have anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah, do you have anything for roundtable? You're on mute, Sarah.
I'll get this right the minute that we go back to the dais, right? So I got two issues right now. The first is I have a home that was reported on West 226th today. I need to get a call into the building department that they say there's a collapsing shed with creatures in it that are resulting in vultures. So we need to do some investigating on that, and hopefully that is something we can take care of relatively quickly. So I'm going to reach out tomorrow to the administration to start to dig on that. I just got that late this afternoon. And then I did have a question for Mary Kay. So given our wonderful, I don't know if she can even hear. Well, I guess I talked to several residents over the weekend about flooding, both in their homes and in their yards. And I was just wondering if anybody could give an update on, how many people called in, whether our service department with its reduced personnel were able to respond, and, where we're going from here. I did see that they had the sewer truck out earlier today at Brook Park and 220th. So I know that they've been busy and we're thankful for that, but I just wondered if there was an update.
Actually, Sarah, I was speaking to that resident there in front of his house, and the street was completely flooded, and the storm drains were backing up into his sump.
Of course.
They're barely keeping up with it. So he said the service department was there looking to see where the outlet was into the park, but at the time that I spoke to him, they hadn't found it yet. So, and I got multiple flooding calls this weekend, multiple.
I did as well. And this house you're talking about, I just received an email from him, and I know Mary Kay did talk to them or left them a message at least.
The Clarks, yeah.
Yeah. So I've talked to and visited at least a dozen houses over the weekend of people who had flooding in Ward 5.
Ward 5 would say.
We are aware of it. I got calls. I talked to a number of residents as well. It's a problem that we have to fix. We have, prior to Friday, and I'm looking outside now, it's not looking too good. We've done some things to try to alleviate this problem, and obviously we need to do some more things. So, some of them are just, at this point, some of them can only be short term, but in the long term, there's, we need a long-term solution of adding more capacity to the system. So, we spent most of today. I think we got about 15 calls here at City Hall. I know there were more floods than, more people affected than that. There's people that I talked to who are not on the list, and I know, so I know there was more than that. But it's an extensive problem in Ward 5 in particularly. I think we've seen the success of the Clifford Road project and what it did in that part of the city. And so we're going to have to do something similar in Ward 5. And we, again, something we have talked about, spent a lot of today, if not most of the day, talking about, and then going forward, we'll be talking to you and everybody else about it. So I don't have anything specific, beyond that. I know it's a problem that we got to fix.
Were we able
Send
to-
us the list of people that called to City Hall, and in case they didn't talk to us directly, we could follow up with them.
Yes, that would be wonderful.
I'm sorry, hold on, I can't hear you because the rain's too loud.
I said, could you send us the list of the 15 people that called City Hall, just in case they didn't reach out to us directly, we could at least follow up with them.
Yeah, I'll forward that to you.
Thanks.
Were they all in Ward 5?
No, they weren't. They were somebody on 213. I think there was somebody on Northwood. There might have been somebody on Eastwood, but the bulk of them were Ward 5.
Anything else, Sarah?
Nope, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bridget?
I just have a quick question for Liz. Are we gonna get business cards at all? Do you have a status on that?
Yes, I have business cards. They actually were delivered to my home by Veta a while ago. So I was trying to wait to get something of a package to mail out before I mail just, those, but I've emailed the letters from the building department. So when I check and see if there's some more, I'll put all that into the mail, and there's just the any other mailings that have come in for you guys, but there hasn't been much, but I can get those out to you.
Great, thank you so much. And that's it.
Thank you. Greg?
Nothing.
Liz?
No, I don't have anything actually, no.
Mayor, do you have anything else you want to add?
Yes, so we've been talking here. I see Walt's on the line. Walt, Mary Kay, Tim, Monica, Chief Raffin, about temporary outdoor seating for restaurants. We've talking pros, cons. There's a lot of different things that come into play. I know in some of the other communities that they're also having these discussions. Tim has looked at some legislation that he could introduce. I wasn't sure if that was something that council would be interested. There's a lot of, there's a lot of different things that come into play. We have had a couple businesses reach out to us. One of the concerns that we had was how this would impact people's liquor permits with the Division of Liquor Control. But it's my understanding the liquor control has expanded, is allowed for temporary, temporary expansions. So with that, that was one of the things that we felt would be difficult if you did allow a temporary expansion, but there wasn't alcohol allowed in the area. There would be a lot of back and forth that could be difficult to police, but because the Division of Liquor Control is willing to expand that, it's maybe easier to monitor or to handle. So I wasn't sure if this is something council wanted to consider. If so, we could get some legislation to you to consider in a committee.
I don't understand the question. Are restaurants asking to expand their current patio?
Current patio, or to go into to like parking spaces or other areas.
So they would legislation in order to expand patios temporarily.
Walt is advised that our code does not allow for temporary structures, temporary seating.
Okay.
So when people were to come to him and ask, the answer would be the code doesn't allow it. So there's, and also from a permit standpoint, there doesn't allow for a temporary permit. So that would be something that if council was willing to allow him to collect and permit, then that we would do it. One of the things would be maybe limiting hours. If there's any violations, the temporary permit could be revoked by the building commissioner or the fire chief if there was a safety issue. I mean, there's this, we've tossed it around. It's complicated because a lot of things are, I think if people had the space to expand their patio, they probably would already have done that. I think Walt's identified 2 places that probably could expand a patio or add to their space, but they just haven't done it.
Would they be like setting up tables in the parking lot and just extending where they can serve?
That's where some people have, that's what they're considering, they would like to do. Nobody at this point can do it because the code doesn't allow it. And we're not, we're not, I just thought it'd be something that if we're, I'm not sure if people would be interested in doing.
And Mayor, if you
I'm
want
not, I'm not advocating one way or the other. I just think we would.
The parking lot, yeah, the parking lot could be their dining area.
Yeah,
Really,
I think it's thinking outside of the box a little bit.
right?
More activity going. I mean, if the business owners want to do that and they're going to comply with whatever the restrictions are.
I mean, it'll help the business out a little bit.
Mayor, if
It
you
was
want to research it and bring it to council in ordinance form, and we'll assign it to committee and discuss it.
Okay, we'll do.
Yeah.
Anything else, Mayor?
No, I'll announce, the Memorial Day festivities are not going to be taking place because of the, stay safe at home order, and I'll talk about that at the meeting, but
Okay.
we're not,
Great.
we tried to do something at the cemetery, but it just didn't fit with the numbers, unfortunately.
All right, thank you. Okay, well, we have a couple minutes until the regular meeting starts. So, thanks, everyone.
Quick question. Are you going to report on the Gemini Center?
Yeah, I was going to talk about that at the meeting as well. We were quite frankly, we weren't anticipating the governor's, change on how to, with the timing of it. We've been looking obviously at things to do there. The protocols came out late Friday. Some of them came out this weekend. We have not, we've gone through them, but we haven't made any final decisions. Last week, Mary Kay, Walt, Tony, Raffin, myself, some of the guys from the service department, Mary Long, were at the Gemini Center looking at things that we could do in anticipation of opening. One of the things that we didn't really think about at the time is the Cleveland Clinic and their needs, and what restrictions they might have with their patients coming in. So these are all things that we're looking at in conjunction with the protocols issued by the governor. So there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of costs that are going to be coming into play because things that you have to do if you have certain areas of the facility open. And so we're just going to have to look at all of those and try to figure out what makes the most sense for us at this point in time. And so no decisions have been made. And we will keep you posted. I know some people are frustrated that it won't be open on May 26th. And I know some people understand that we're taking our time for safety reasons, and that's our number one priority, and moving forward. So, so it's, there's just a lot of things to consider, and we're looking at them, looking at all of those. And we didn't have the benefit of those late last week. So.
Thank you.
What are you folks hearing about it?
I did have, someone did ask me that, because they were wondering if it was going to open, after the May 26th deadline. And they said, I don't feel comfortable going, but was wondering if they held back going for 3 more months until, would their membership then get to be kind of wait? I said, well, I could suggest if let's say, Joe Smith goes on May 26th, their membership would start right up then. But if this person doesn't go till September 1st, then, would they get credit for those months they didn't go because they didn't feel safe, So I said, well, I'll mention that, different people, because I would think the city, if we did, when we reopen, it would be almost preferred that we don't get, bombarded with every member showing up. It would almost be nice if the crowd were a little bit lighter. But then the people that choose to wait, their membership shouldn't be, they shouldn't be penalized for being cautious is kind of where they were coming from. So just that's
Well,
a question. I
Well,
have.
I'm glad I asked the question because that's not something we thought about. So
Yeah.
that's a good point. And that's something we'll think about. I mean,
Yeah, I didn't know if the computer would pick up that, that Mary Smith comes on May 26th. Well, then she would have what, a 2-month credit for the last 2 months we've been closed. But if Ann Carney doesn't come until September, she would want, 4 months credit or whatever,
Yeah.
so that if the computer knows that, when you come, the date.
yeah, I think we could track it. But
Okay,
yeah.
that would almost be preferred, I think, that we don't get so many people, because then we can keep up on,
I think that's a great idea, Maureen.
yeah, so just something to throw into the mix of your conversation.
Okay,
The question I get is about if they will get credit or refunds for the unused months. That's the main.
yes, while it's closed, they will get a credit. It's not a refund, but a credit.
Okay.
Yeah, and the credit, if it could extend until they choose.
Right. So
Okay.
if you expired in March and we open in June, then you get, April, May, and June, you get 3-month credit.
Yeah, but if the person doesn't go till September, you get
That
credit.
that part we'll have to think about.
Okay, thank you.
Just as a heads up, if we are gonna do it that way, just for devil's advocate's sake, previously that would have extended mine by 12 to 15 to 17 months. So maybe that's a program that people would have to opt into that says I'm making a conscious choice not to go, as opposed to just I bought a gym membership and I don't go, like 99% of Americans. So just a thought to try to protect some revenue stream later down the line, that if it's a conscious choice, maybe that's to be considered. But if it's just I never used my membership and I never did, perhaps maybe that's not the way to go.
Right.
So maybe we'll have to put a time period on it, time frame, the first couple of months. But thanks. We'll think about it, let you know.
Thanks.
Right, well, we're about ready to begin the regular meeting.
We're gonna start that at 7 o'clock. We got 2 minutes here.
Yes. All right, it's 7 o'clock. Do we have everyone back? Looks like it. Okay, we'll begin the regular meeting of council, the city of Fairview Park, for Monday, May 18th, 2020. It's now called to order. A moment of silent reflection. Would the clerk please call roll?
Mr. Simmerly,
Here.
Mr. Minnick,
Here.
Mrs. Adler, I'm sorry,
Here.
Mr. Cobain,
Here.
Mrs. Waring,
Here.
Mrs. King,
Here.
Mr. Berger.
Present.
All right, Chair will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of council, May the 4th, 2020.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk please call roll on the motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Simmerly,
Yes.
Mr. Minnick,
Yes.
Mrs. Adler,
Yes.
Mr. Cobain,
Yes.
Mrs. Waring,
Yes.
Mrs. King,
Yes.
Mr. Berger.
Yes.
Okay, the minutes are approved. We will now have committee reports for this evening with start with local government and community services, Councilwoman Waring.
Thank you, Council President. The Local Government and Community Services Committee met via Zoom meeting on Monday, May 11th, beginning at 7 p.m. In attendance were members of council, Mayor Cooney, Directors Riley and Costello, and Bridget Gibbons, the Director of Programming at the Cuyahoga County Juvenile Court. We discussed Ordinance 2010, which authorizes Fairview Park's participation in the Community Diversion Program. Bridget Gibbons, the Director of Programming at the Cuyahoga County Juvenile Court, was available to answer questions for council. Ms. Gibbons discussed the program and its goal of keeping youth from becoming deeply involved in systems like the juvenile court. She informed council that sometimes adolescents make mistakes or poor choices that impact the community, and this program is designed to help these kids make amends for their behavior and get back on the correct path. City Council voted 7-0 to place Ordinance 2010 on third reading and final passage. Council discussed Resolution 2004, which appoints John Castell as the volunteer hearing officer for this community diversion program. With no objection to the appointment, City Council voted 7-0 to place Resolution 2004 on third reading and final passage. Local Government and Community Services Committee ended at 7:19 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Finance Committee report, Councilwoman King.
Thank you, Council President. The Finance Committee met via video conference on May 11, 2020 at 7:19 p.m. In attendance were member of council, Mayor Cooney, Director Riley, Director Single, Director Costello, and members of the community. Ordinance 2021 authorizing acceptance and administration of the 2020 NOPEC Energized Community Grant was discussed. Currently, Director Costello stated that the project does not have, there's no project to match with the monies being received. Director Single said that this money can just go into our budget until there's a project that matches the specifications of the grant. A motion was made to place this on second read and remain in committee, and it was passed with a vote of 7-0. The Finance Committee ended at 7:23 p.m. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Councilwoman. We will now begin the legislative agenda for this evening with legislation for first reading. Councilwoman King, if you're ready.
Yes, I would like to place an ordinance and 2 resolutions before council for first reading.
Will the clerk please assign numbers and read the titles?
Ordinance 2023, requested by Finance Director Greg Single, sponsored by Councilwoman King. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to engage the Ohio Auditor of State to provide additional services as part of the 2019 fiscal year audit and declaring an emergency. Resolution 2007, originated by the Finance Department, requested by Mayor Patrick Cooney, sponsored by Councilwoman King. A resolution adopting the alternative tax budget of the city of Fairview Park, state of Ohio, for fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2021, and submitting the same to the Cuyahoga County Fiscal Officer and declaring an emergency. Resolution 2008, requested by Mary Kay Costello, Director of Public Service and Development. Sponsored by Councilwoman King, co-sponsored by Councilman Minnick. A resolution requesting that the City of Rocky River apply for financial assistance from the Water Pollution Control Loan Fund Program for the funding of the Rocky River Wastewater Treatment Plant Final Clarifier Rehabilitation Project and declaring an emergency.
All right, thank you. Ordinance 2023, Resolution 2007, and Resolution 2008 were all placed on first reading and are all assigned to the Finance Committee. All right, we'll now have legislation for second reading. Councilwoman King.
Thank you. I would like to place an ordinance 2021 before council for second reading.
Will the clerk please read the title?
Ordinance 2021, requested by Mary Kay Costello, Director of Public Service and Development, sponsored by Councilwoman King. An ordinance accepting the 2020 Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council Energized Community Grant to provide financial assistance for energy efficiency projects or energy infrastructure improvements, and authorizing the city administration to file all documents and execute all agreements necessary to receive any awarded grant funds and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. All right, ordinance 2021 is placed on second reading and returned to the Finance Committee. It is now time for audience input on legislation that is up for passage this evening. Did the clerk receive any questions or comments for legislation that is up for passage this evening, or is there anyone on this call that has any questions or comments? All right, thank you. We'll now have legislation for third reading and final passage. Councilwoman Waring, if you're ready.
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to place ordinance 2010 up for third reading and final passage.
Will the clerk please read the title?
Ordinance 2010, requested by Mayor Patrick Cooney, sponsored by Councilwoman Waring. An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Fairview Park to enter into an agreement with the Cuyahoga County Juvenile Court in connection with a community diversion program to address juvenile misdemeanor and status offenders in the city of Fairview Park, establishing a community diversion program fund as a special revenue fund, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Prior to call for passage of ordinance 2010, is there any discussion?
Council President?
Councilwoman Waring.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to amend Exhibit A, line 1, to read 2020 rather than 2019.
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
For any discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk please call roll on the motion to amend?
Mr. Simmerly.
Yes.
Mr. Minnick. Mr. Minnick.
Yes.
Mrs. Adler.
Yes.
Mr. Cobain.
Yes.
Waring.
Yes.
Mrs. King.
Yes.
Mr. Berger.
Yes.
Motion carries. The ordinance is amended. Prior to call for passage of ordinance 2010 amended, is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, will the clerk please call roll on passage of ordinance 2010 amended?
Mr. Simmerly.
Yes.
Mr. Minnick.
Yes.
Mrs. Adler.
Yes.
Mr. Cobain.
Yes.
Mrs. Waring.
Yes.
Mrs. King.
Yes.
Mr. Berger.
Yes.
Ordinance 2010 amended passes. Councilwoman Waring.
Thank you, Council President. I would like to place Resolution 2004 up for third reading and final passage.
Will the clerk please read the title?
Resolution 2004, requested by Mayor Patrick Cooney, sponsored by Councilwoman Waring. A resolution to express the need and desire of the city of Fairview Park, Ohio, for the appointment of a volunteer hearing officer to preside at community diversion program hearings.
Thank you. Prior to call for passage of resolution 2004, is there any discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk please call roll on passage of resolution 2004?
Mr. Simmerly,
Yes.
Mr. Minnick,
Yes.
Mr. Cobain,
Yes.
Mrs. Waring,
Yes.
Mrs. King,
Yes.
Mr. Berger,
Yes.
Resolution 2004 passes. Councilwoman King,
Thank you, Council President. I would like to place ordinance 2012 up for third reading and final passage.
will the clerk please read the title?
Ordinance 2012, requested by Mayor Patrick Cooney, sponsored by Councilwoman King. An ordinance establishing the retiree accrued benefits fund and declaring an emergency.
Prior to call for passage of ordinance 2012, is there any discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk please call roll on passage of ordinance 2012?
Mr. Simmerly,
Yes.
Mr. Minnick, Mrs. Adler,
Yes.
Mr. Cobain,
Yes.
Mrs. Waring,
Yes.
Mrs. King,
Yes.
Mr. Berger,
Yes.
Ordinance 2012 passes. Councilwoman King,
Thank you, Council President. I would like to place ordinance 2013 up for third reading and final passage.
will the clerk please read the title?
Ordinance 2013, requested by Mayor Patrick Cooney, sponsored by Councilwoman King. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Go To It Group for professional support services for the city's computer systems and declaring an emergency.
Okay, prior to call for passage of ordinance 2013, is there any discussion? All right, hearing none, will the clerk please call roll on passage of ordinance 2013?
Mr. Simmerly,
Yes.
Mr. Minnick, Mrs. Adler,
Yes.
Mr. Cobain,
Yes.
Mrs. Waring,
Yes.
Mrs. King,
Yes.
Mr. Berger,
Yes.
Ordinance 2013 passes. Is anyone else having difficulty hearing Councilman Minnick?
Yes.
Bill, you have an issue with your mic on your system there, buddy.
Okay.
All right. All right, well, that concludes our legislative agenda for this evening. We'll now have reports and communications from the mayor and his directors. Mayor Cooney, if you're ready.
Thank you, Council President Kilbane. Last Thursday, Governor DeWine advised that the gyms, rec centers, and pools could open on May 26th. The protocols for these reopenings were issued late Friday and on Saturday. We are reviewing these protocols, and as of right now, no definite dates on when the Gemini Center or the pools are going to open. Prior to the governor's press conference on Thursday, we have been communicating as a staff about ways to operate under the new potential new guidelines. And while we have some ideas, we're just at this point not sure when we're going to open. We've been conducting some repairs and maintenance to the Gemini Center, and that, because of the timing of some of those things, that impacts, setting up the equipment and that socially distance, proper social distancing. So again, we're working on this, and as we have updates, we'll provide them. The number one priority that we have, and when we open up the Gemini Center, when we are considering new programming, existing program, is the health and safety of our residents, the members of the facility, and our employees. This is a big facility. The requirements in opening it have a lot of deal with a lot of extensive cleaning after any type of use. So that's not something that that we take lightly, because it again affects everybody's health and safety. So we're reviewing these protocols and so that when we do open, that everyone will feel safe and again get to enjoy the great facility that we have. We have talked to the Cuyahoga County Board of Health about these issues. We will continue to consult with them. Other things that we need to consider is being able to maximize the facility under these current restrictions. Again, cleaning, spacing, and what people's interests are in using the facility. Also, the Cleveland Clinic is a tenant there. They're a good tenant, and they have some concern. They have things that that have to come into play when we're considering and sharing of the space. And so all of these things are being looked at, and as the time comes, as we get closer to opening, we'll be letting all of you know. As I mentioned in the caucus meeting, the Memorial Day events will not be taking place due to the stay safe order that's in place that limits gatherings to 10 people through May 29th. So the We Do Care event at City Hall, the Memorial Day Parade, and the ceremony at the Fairview Park Cemetery are canceled. I'd like to thank American Legion Post 738 for all of the work that they have done in the past with respect to the Memorial Day Parade, and sorry that we're not going to be able to do that this year. I'd like to thank all of the members, most of them who are veterans, and all of the veterans in our community for all for their past service to our country. And sorry again that we're not going to be able to honor the people who have who have died for our country. I know this past Friday, that we had flooding in portions of Fairview Park, in particular Ward 5. Director Costello will talk about some of the specific things that we have done and that we will be doing going forward. I know that this is a problem that the city needs to address and to fix. As with any type of aging infrastructure that we have, it's not a simple problem. There's a lot of factors that go into it. A lot of those factors that we can't see. So there's some data that we need to collect in order to address it, economically, as well as, to fix the problem. We have talked to Engineer McKay prior to these events about some of these issues. We've been in contact with his office today, and we will be working with him in the future to fix this problem. It's, I've experienced a flooded basement before a number of times, and I know the angst, the nervousness, the frustration that people have when they have a flooded basement. So I can relate, and I know this is something that we have to address so that people do not experience these problems in the future. There are things that we can do in the short term that will help, and there are long-term solutions that will be more helpful to alleviate this problem. And we know that, and we're working on both the long-term and the short-term solutions. There are also things that homeowners can do to help alleviate their particular problem, but it's a systemic problem. And if there's things that people can do at their home that would alleviate the problem at their residence, it would also help from a systemic standpoint. We're willing to help people in giving them some guidance on things that might be helpful to them. I understand there'll be costs that, the same thing as the city experiences. Some of these things are easier to do because of the cost involved, and some of them are harder to do. But again, we're willing to help with suggestions to fix the problem. This is something that we've worked on since we've started, something we worked on today, something we're going to work on going forward. And if anyone has any questions, any suggestions, as a council, please let us know. If any residents have any questions, suggestions, or things that they would like to let us know. I've talked to a number of people on the phone, stopped by some people's homes. If I haven't, if there's things that people want to talk to us about, please feel free to reach out to me here at City Hall. Patrick.Cooney at fairviewpark.org, or you can call 440-356-4411. If you'd like to talk to Director Costello about this, please feel free to reach out to her as well. We understand that this is a problem, and we're going to be working on it, fixing it. Thank you. That's all I have, Council President.
Thanks, Mayor Cooney.
Thank you.
Director of Public Service and Development, Costello.
Thank you very much. As everyone knows, as the mayor has announced, there's been a lot of rain. And on Friday, May 15th, North Olmsted registered 2.83 inches of rain. In a 3-hour period, 2.1 inches fell. And in in one of those hours, 1.42 inches of rain fell. And it was just at a time where yards and ground had already been saturated by rain the previous evening, and just a lot of precipitation in our general area. As a result, as the mayor mentioned, we found flooding mainly in the southwest corner of Ward 5. And we were able to determine that there were no blockages, that the pumps were working. Our personnel were at the pumps Friday, and even earlier in the week, that as part of their regular maintenance, they had been cleaning and doing some general maintenance at the pumps, but they were there on Friday when the rain started, and through that evening, keeping an eye on. In fact, I have no reports of any basements that could not recede. So we know that the lines were allowing flow. It was just too much for any of the system in that general area to manage. It seems to me that the rain fell mainly south of Lorraine Road. We see Westlake having 1.4 inches of rain for the day, but places like Olmsted Falls having 2.8 inches of rain. So we think that we were in this storm cell that impacted that area a little harder than other places. Just as to step back for discussion of what has been done, we have had restrictors in place. They took the place of sandbags that residents and you may have seen being put on the storm drains on the street. We have instead put a permanent restriction that offers a better restriction of stormwater into the system than the sandbags, which floated away in some cases or deflated as they were damaged and required a lot of maintenance. So we've removed the sandbags and we've restricted storm flow to hold the stormwater in the street for as long as possible, so that it's not creating pressure in the system and supercharging lines, finding its way into the sanitary and surcharging up into basements and causing flooding. Although on Friday, even those efforts didn't stop basement floodings from happening. We had jetted, cleaned the sanitary system in Ward 5 last month, and I think that was very, very helpful. Moving forward, I've sent a plan for the short term to Mayor Cooney that includes some additional deep maintenance at the pumps, at the pump station. It's been a couple years since we've had a deep cleaning to the very bottom of the well to take out any solids that might have formed and need help being removed. And we will expand our restrictor program. Currently, the mayor had given us permission to insert additional flow meters. There was a required flow metering for the city of Rocky River's wastewater treatment flow. And the mayor approved us to have some extra meters in the Ward 5 area so that we can use that data to help us plan in the future. So it's fortuitous that we're going to have this data that we will use sooner than later and help us guide our decisions as we move forward toward the longer term. And we'll share, of course, that as we move forward, we'll share what we find from the data. We will share our strategies that we can form from using this data with you all. Also, as the mayor said, if anyone has any questions about specifics about the short-term and the long-term strategies that I've shared with the mayor, please don't hesitate to give me a call or email me. My email is maryk.costello@fairviewpark.org. I'll be happy to correspond with anyone that's interested and of course, take anyone's call in that regard. And finally, I'd like to send out on a happier note, a somewhat happier note, a very sincere thank you with deep gratitude to our garden club, especially Mary Banco. We find ourselves in a situation right now where we didn't feel it was appropriate to spend money on flowers that we usually have hung from brackets in the past. And once the garden club found out about that, they donated their budget to the city so that we could hang some flowers, and they are going to plant some of the flowers in the containers along Lorraine Road. It's not going to be as extensive as years past. And I hope that doesn't make people unhappy or unsatisfied, but there was no way we would have done it without the garden club's help. So I think it will help brighten up our very busy and very concerned business district and help make places attractive for people to transition back into visiting our businesses there. So I very much appreciate the Garden Club and Mary Banco's efforts to coordinate that. You'll see their volunteers planting this Wednesday along Lorraine Road. So appreciate that. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Finance Director Single. Greg, are you there? Do we have the Finance Director with us?
He's on the line. 356-4401, I believe is the.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me now?
I can. Thank you.
Thank you. The Regional Income Tax Agency finalized the April tax receipts last week. I know the mayor had sent the information over to City Council for your review. Maybe at the end of next week, right around May 29th or the following week, we should receive the advance for the May collections, and we'll report those to City Council as soon as they are received. We'll continue just to analyze data, provide information to the mayor as we receive it with respect to the financial impact that this pandemic is having. And then finally, the two items that are on the council agenda tonight are in first reading, ordinance 2023 and resolution 20-07. If any member of council has any questions with respect to either of those two pieces of legislation before next Tuesday's committee meeting, please let me know. And that's all I have tonight, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Law Director Riley.
Nothing this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. City Engineer McKay.
Thank you, Council President Kilbane. Just to reiterate what the mayor and the service director indicated, we've obviously seen some significant storms here over the past couple of days, and they've obviously taxed our system. So I will obviously be working with the mayor and the service director to address the flooding issues. And in the meantime, though, if you or any of your residents have questions or would like me to talk with them, please let me know. I'll be glad to do that. Also, I have one other item to report, and that's simply that on the plans for the West 210th Street resurfacing and repair project are underway. And that's a project we're not going to build until 2021. And I will keep you informed of our progress on that. Thank you. And that's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Engineer McKay. Has the clerk received any emails or questions or comments for the public session this evening?
No, I have not.
Okay. All right. With that, we'll move to miscellaneous business and comments by members of council. Councilman Simmerly, do you have anything?
I do not have anything tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Minnick.
You hear me, Council President? Can you hear me now?
I can, Councilman Minnick. Go ahead.
Thank you. As I reported earlier, a mutual friend of ours, Karen Kirsch, the liaison for Luminating Company, passed away. And I'll inform the individuals when their services are going to be available. Mayor or Director Costello, or to be any Ward 2 flooding complaints, as I flooded slightly myself. It was not only the south side of Fairview Park, it was on the north side. I hate to say this, but Summerfest has been canceled. There'll be more information later. Planning Design Commission will meet this Wednesday by Zoom. 2 docket items: 22650 Lorraine Road, Legacy Spa review of plan for signage, and 21200 and 21500 Brook Park Road, review of plans for a lot split consolidation. That completes my report. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman Minnick. Councilwoman Adler.
I just want to continue to thank our Mayor Cooney and his administration, and especially our service department, as they've continue to go through these difficult times, and we're, individuals are pulling together to pick up, all the extra work and to keep Fairview Park, the city strong. I know it's a difficult time for the mayor and for the administration, but I, applaud you for keeping your efforts being nothing but as much as you can in the best interests of our city and finances for our future.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Waring.
Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to reiterate that my thoughts are with our currently laid off city workers. I'm hopeful that with the responsible reopening of Ohio, this financial crisis will begin to resolve itself and that we will be able to welcome you back soon. Secondly, with the rains that we've been experiencing here in Fairview Park over the last few days, I recognize that there's been some flooding issues, as we've already discussed, both in backyards and in homes. So this is just a reminder that when these kinds of things happen on your property, please report it to your council person, even if you have reported it during previous episodes. With your reports, we are able to continue to map flooding hotspots in the city, and that will help us identify specific problems and potentially specific improvement projects for the city. A flooded basement is not just water, really. It's a violation. It's an intrusion in your home. And I recognize how heartbreaking that can be, having had it happen to myself. I'm especially thankful for our service workers who've been helping our residents throughout this entire storm system. And like I said, you know, we are working as a city, and together we can map this problem and start to develop the improvement projects that we need to bring us out of this type of a flooding situation. Finally, I wish all of our residents a safe and enjoyable Memorial Day weekend. Thank you to the veterans who served our country, and especially to those who gave the ultimate sacrifice. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman King.
Thank you, Council President. I would like to start off by thanking Service Department for the hard work with the flooding this weekend. As it was stated, Ward 5 was hit pretty hard. We had I talked to many residents. So thank you for your hard work. I would specifically like to thank you, Director Costello, for being available for my questions all weekend. So I was able to answer questions to residents. That was very helpful. I'd like to give a shout out to the mayor. He was spotted cleaning out sewers on Macbeth on Sunday. So thank you for being willing to roll up your sleeves and get dirty to help with the situation. I just want to let you know it was noticed and appreciate it.
Don't tell the service department.
You have a side job now.
Yeah, thank you.
And,
You know,
I'd also like to thank the Garden Club for their generous donation. That's going to really help beautify the city in this kind of downtime. So thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Berger.
I just got a request, an email that was sent, that the emailer wanted me to stress how imperative it is to reopen the Gemini Center. He stated that he's been doing a lot of walking at the track, but it's killing his knees, and the use of the elliptical and the bikes, are helpful for him. And he just wanted to stress how important this is to many people. He asked that message be relayed in tonight's meeting. And then also there was a follow-up comment that the sign up at City Hall didn't specify that this was a Zoom meeting tonight. I'm not sure what it was listed on it, but I don't think that detail was included. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman. All right. Chair would like to announce there was an executive session that was held on May 11th to consider compensation of a public employee or official, other personnel matters, and to prepare for, conduct, or review negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment. Council will meet again on Tuesday, May 26th at 7 p.m. for its next committee meeting due to the holiday. And there being nothing else to come before this council this evening, the chair will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Second.
Would the clerk please call roll on the motion?
Liz, you're muted.
Mr. Simmerly,
Yes.
Mr. Minnick,
Yes.
Mrs. Adler,
Yes.
Mr. Kilbane,
Yes.
Mrs. Waring,
Yes.
Mr. Berger,
Yes.
Mrs. King.
Yes.
Motion carries. Council is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night,
Stay safe.
you be safe, everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.